Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels Origins deck tag. Today we're taking a look at blue-red artifacts, a very synergistic deck. Starting with our 1-drops, we have Fiery Impulse that deals 2 damage to target creature at instant speed. It also has Spell Mastery, so if we have 2 or more instants and or sorcery cards in our graveyard, it deals 3 damage instead, so this can become a lightning bolt for creatures. We can't target players, so it's not a real burn spell, but we only want it to deal with creatures anyways, so it's still a very efficient removal spell at that. We have 10 instants in this deck, so we should be able to activate the Spell Mastery quite often. Next up are the 2-drops, where we have another removal spell in Twin Bolt. This deals 2 damage divided as we choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players, so this one can go to players as well. But more often than not we will be using this on creatures in combination with combat damage to maybe get a 2-for-1 out of this, and it's still a pretty efficient removal spell at just 2 mana and instant speed. Next up is Rune Servitor, our first artifact in the deck. It's a 2/2 for 2 mana, and when Rune Servitor dies, each player draws a card, which is neither really an advantage nor a drawback, but it's just a curve filler here, and we wanted an additional 2-drop artifact to go along with our artifact synergies, so Rune Servitor does the job. And next up are the 3-drops, which we do have a fair amount of. The first one is a Girapur Gearcrafter. For 3 mana we get a 2/1, and in addition we also get a 1/1 colorless Copter artifact creature token with flying, so we get 3 power and 2 toughness divided into 2 creatures, and one of them is evasive, so a pretty decent deal here. And since we do have a lot of artifact synergies, the Copter token is a welcome addition. Next up is Copter Engineer, another 3-drop that makes a 1/1 colorless Copter token with flying when it enters the battlefield, and all artifact creatures we control have haste, so the 1/1 will have haste when it enters the battlefield as long as the Copter Engineer is in play, and all our future Copter tokens will have haste as well, so just another artifact generator here to go along with our Gearcrafter and our other Copter generators, so we can build up an army of Copter tokens and dominate the skies. So Copter Engineer, a pretty decent one here. Next up is Chief of the Foundry, which is a payoff for playing all those artifact cards and artifact generators, and this one is a 2/3 for 3 mana, which gives all other artifact creatures we control +1/+1. So suddenly all those innocent 1/1 Copter tokens become 2/2s, and a 2-power flyer can do quite a bit of damage. So Chief of the Foundry also stacks, so if we have 2 of them in play everyone gets +2/+2, so quite a powerful card in this archetype. Next up is Artificer's Epiphany. For 3 mana we get to draw 2 cards, and if we control no artifact, discard a card. So more often than not we will just be drawing 2 cards at instant speed for just 3 mana, which is a very good deal. We don't want too many of these effects because they don't really affect the board, but having 2 copies should allow us to refuel our hand when we're down on cards, and should give us a good advantage in the late game. Then our 4-drops, we have Copter Spy Network, which is one of the more exciting cards in this archetype. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we control an artifact, we can put an additional 1/1 Copter token into play, and if 1 or more artifact creatures we control dealt combat damage to a player, we can draw a card. So we don't draw a card for each creature that dealt damage, but just 1 card total, which is pretty powerful if you consider we still get a 1/1 Copter token every turn. So with all our other cards generating Copter tokens, it should not be a problem getting an artifact into play to get the other Copter tokens going. And once we have a few Copter tokens out, it's going to be difficult for the opponent to stop us getting a Copter token every turn, unless they find a sweeper, but we still have a lot of cards that generate those Copter tokens to get the Spy Network going again and draw us more cards. So a pretty powerful enchantment here, and there's not a ton of enchantment removal going around, so this should be able to provide us a lot of advantage. Next up is Whirler Rogue. For 4 mana we get a 2/2, as well as 2 1/1 colorless Copter tokens with flying, so 4 power and 4 toughness total for 4 mana, which is a pretty good deal, and divided into 3 creatures, which is also great. And that's not all. If we tap 2 untapped artifacts we control, target creature can't be blocked this turn, which is pretty nice since we can tap our 2 summoning sick tokens we got from the rogue to give something unblockable right away. Next up is Pia and Kiran Nalaar. which is pretty much the red version of Whirler Rogue. So we also get 2 copter tokens along with a 2/2 body, but they also have another ability. For 2 and a red and sacrificing an artifact, they deal 2 damage to target creature or player, so another powerful ability here that can act as a removal spell or even go to the opponent's face. Our final 4-drop is Reclusive Artificer. It's a 2/3 with haste, and when it enters a battlefield it deals damage to target creature equal to the number of artifacts we control. So with all our copter tokens we should be able to take out a sizable creature with this ability, as well as getting an additional body in play, so a pretty good card in this archetype. And our only 5-drop in this deck is Will Breaker, which is a pretty spicy card in this archetype. It's a 2/3, and whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes a target from a spell or ability we control, we gain control of that creature for as long as we control Will Breaker. So if you remember Fiery Impulse and Twin Bolt, those are all good ways to target creatures without actually killing them, so we gain control of them. And with Twin Bolt especially, we can target 2 creatures at once and get control of them. And even with the Whirler Rogue's ability to make a creature unblockable, we can also use this to target a creature an opponent controls, since there's no limitation on what creature we can target. So we can use that to tap 2 artifacts we control to gain control of a creature an opponent controls, which is a very powerful effect of course. So I think Will Breaker will slot in nicely into this deck and will provide us a pretty sizable advantage in the late game, especially once the opponent has used all their removal spells. And then finally the mana base is pretty simple. 4 Izzet Guildgate, 2 Sulphur Falls, those are all the dual lands we get, as well as 9 mountains and 9 islands. So that'll do it for this deck. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.